Hello friends, today we are going to learn the anatomy of ulna or the ulnar bone. Like radius, ulna is also a long bone that extends from the elbow to the wrist, but it is the medial bone of forearm which is homologous with the lateral bone of leg, the fibula. Now let's see the anatomical position and side determination. To determine the side and keep it in anatomical position, the bone should be folded vertically in such a way that the hook-like process should be directed upwards with the concavity facing forwards. Then we have to see that the sharpest border should be facing laterally. This will be the lateral aspect and this will be the medial aspect, and the lower end should have the head of ulna and a styloid process which is seen posterior-medially. Now let's see the orientation. Here is the ulna of right side. The bone should be kept with the hook-like process should be directed upwards. Then you have to see the lateral border should be sharp and it should be directed on the side. Here it is directed towards the right side. This is lateral side, and the down it should have the head of ulna and the styloid process facing posterior medially. Now let's see the gross features and attachments. Like other long bones, it is also having an upper end, an intervening shaft, and a lower end. This is the closer view of upper end. This is the lateral view. This is the medial view, and this is the anterior view. It has two processes, the olecranon process and a coronoid process, and two notches, the trochlear notch and the radial notch. Coming to the olecranon process, it has five surfaces: the superior surface and the anterior surface, the posterior surface, the lateral surface, and the medial surface. Now let's see the superior surface. It gives insertion of triceps brachii in the posterior part, and it gives attachment to the capsule of elbow joint in the anterior margin. Here in the anterior margin, it gives attachment to the capsule of elbow joint, and there may be a bursa present in between the structures, the synovial bursa. Next, the anterior surface, it is smooth and forms the upper part of trochlear notch, and medially, it gives attachment to three structures: the ulnar head of flexor carpi ulnaris, and the posterior and oblique bands of the ulnar collateral ligament, posterior and the oblique bands. And next, on the lateral surface, it gives attachment insertion to the anconeus muscle. On the posterior surface, it is triangular and subcutaneous. It is related to a subcutaneous olecranon bursa. Next, the coronoid process. It is an anterior projection distal to the olecranon process, and it has four surfaces. This is the anterior surface. This will be the superior surface, and here is the medial surface, and here is the lateral surface. This is the lateral surface of the coronoid process. Coming to the superior surface, it is smooth and forms the lower part of trochlear notch, and the anterior surface is triangular, and in the lower corner it has a tuberosity called the ulnar tuberosity. The one which is in the red circle is the ulnar tuberosity. The entire anterior surface along with the ulnar tuberosity gives insertion to the brachialis muscle, and on the medial margin of the anterior surface, here is the medial margin, superiorly it has a tubercle called the sublime tubercle. The sublime tubercle gives attachment to three structures: the anterior and oblique bands of ulnar collateral ligament and the humero-ulnar head of flexor digitorum superficialis, FDS. It is also called the sublimus muscle. These three structures are attached on the sublime tubercle, and below the tubercle on the medial margin there is attachment of ulnar head of pronator teres and the flexor pollicis longus. Pronator teres and the flexor pollicis longus. Total five structures: the anterior and oblique bands of ulnar collateral ligament, the humero-ulnar head of flexor digitorum superficialis or the sublimus muscle, and the ulnar head of pronator teres and the flexor pollicis longus on the medial margin of the anterior surface. Next, the medial surface, it provides attachment or the origin to flexor digitorum profundus. It is profundus, not superficialis. And the lateral surface, here you can see the lateral surface. Superiorly it has the radial notch, and below the radial notch it has a fossa called the supinator fossa. It lodges the radial tuberosity. As we know, the radial tuberosity is present on the radius, and it lodges the radial tuberosity during supination and the pronation. Next, below it has a crest called the supinator crest. Here will be the supinator crest. Both the fossa and the crest together gives origin to the supinator muscle. That's all about the processes. Next, the notches. The trochlear notch is a C-shaped semilunar notch which lodges the trochlea of the humerus to form humero-ulnar articulation, and the radial notch lodges the radial head, and the margins of the radial notch gives attachment to the annular ligament. That's all about the upper end of ulna. Let's see the intervening shaft. The intervening shaft has three borders: the lateral border, the anterior border, and the posterior border, and three surfaces: the anterior surface, posterior surface, and the lateral surface. Coming to the anterior border, here you can see the anterior border. This will be the anterior border. And next, the lateral border, which is sharp and gives attachment to the interosseous membrane. And next, you can see the posterior border. Here is the posterior border. Coming to the anterior border, the anterior border extends. Here the anterior border extends from the supinator crest, the ulnar tuberosity up to the base of styloid process. From the ulnar tuberosity to the base of styloid process, and it gives origin to flexor digitorum profundus in the upper 3/4. Flexor digitorum profundus in the upper 3/4. Next, the lateral border. It is the sharpest border and gives attachment to the interosseous muscle. It extends from the supinator crest and below up to the lower end. Next, the posterior border, which extends from the triangular area and the posterior surface of olecranon process up to the styloid process, and it gives attachment to three muscles through a common aponeurosis. The three muscles are flexor digitorum profundus and two carpi ulnaris, the flexor carpi ulnaris and the extensor carpi ulnaris. Flexor digitorum profundus, flexor carpi ulnaris and the extensor carpi ulnaris through a common aponeurosis on the posterior border. Next, the surfaces. On the anterior surface, which lies between the interosseous border and the anterior border, and it gives attachment to the flexor digitorum profundus in the upper 3/4. The upper 3/4 to the flexor digitorum profundus, and in the lower 1/4 it gives origin to the pronator quadratus, and in the middle it has a nutrient foramen which is directed upwards, as the growing end is present on the distal end of the ulna. And next, the medial surface. Here will be the medial surface. The medial surface is present between the anterior border and the posterior border, and it gives origin to the flexor digitorum profundus in the upper 2/3 of this surface. And next, the posterior surface. It has an oblique line which dividing it into the smaller superior part and the larger lower part. In the lower part, it is divided into 1/4 part, in the upper 1/4 part, the next 1/4, and the next 4 1/4. In the upper 1/4, it gives attachment to abductor pollicis longus, origin to the abductor pollicis longus. In the next 1/4, it gives origin to extensor pollicis longus, and in the lower next 1/4, it gives origin to extensor indicis. Remember, to the abductor pollicis ABPL, and in the next 1/4 it is extensor pollicis longus, and in the next 1/4 it is extensor indicis, whereas in the last 1/4 it has no attachments. This is related to the posterior surface. That's all about the shaft. And coming to the lower end, it has head of ulna and styloid process posteromedially. Coming to the head, it articulates with the ulnar notch of radius to form infero-radio-ulnar joint. This is the infero-radio-ulnar joint articulating with the ulnar notch of radius, and this has an articular disc. The inferior surface, here is the inferior surface. The articular disc is present, separating it from the carpal bones. Coming to the styloid process, on the tip of styloid process, there is attachment of a ligament called medial collateral ligament of wrist joint, whereas on the styloid process of radius, there is attachment of radial collateral ligament, and here the attachment is the medial collateral ligament, and the between the head and the base of styloid process. This is the head, and here will be the base of, here you can see like this, the styloid process is present, and this is the head, and here is the base, and in between there is attached the triangular articular disc at this depression. And next you can see a tendon is related to the head of ulna, that is extensor carpi ulnaris tendon, the tendon of extensor carpi ulnaris. That's all about the gross features and attachments. Let's see the ossification of ulna. The ulna ossifies through a primary center that appears in the shaft around the 8th week of intrauterine life, same as that of radius, and it has two secondary centers, one at the upper end and one at the lower end. In the upper end, it is present in the upper part of trochlear surface and the top of olecranon process. The appearance is around 9th year, and the fusion with the shaft around is around the 18th year. And in the lower end, it is present in the middle of head, and it appears around 6th year and fuses with the shaft around 20th year. Next, let's see some clinical correlations. Here is the elbow dislocation. Here you can see fully flexed elbow, and at the elbow, these are the elbow points, two epicondyles of the humerus. This is humerus, and this is the olecranon process of ulna. Three elbow points forms the isosceles triangle, whereas you can in the fully extended, this is the fully extended elbow, the 3 points lies in a common line. This is main feature that help us to identify the supracondylar fracture, or if the fracture is over here, complete lower fragment will displace and the triangle is not disturbed. Whereas in elbow dislocation, here you can see the elbow dislocation where the olecranon process is going backward and the epicondyles are not moving, so there will be the disturbance in triangle. By this, with the help of this, we can identify the elbow dislocation and the supracondylar fracture. Now next one, this is the Montague fracture. Here there is fracture in the upper third of shaft and there is disturbance in the superior radio-ulnar joint. Next, the Galeazzi fracture. Here is fracture in the lower one third of shaft and there is disturbance in the lower radio-ulnar joint, the inferior radio-ulnar joint. And next, this is the nightstick fracture. When a night watchman keeps his hand to protect himself from the blow of a stick, then the ulna will be broken. This is called the nightstick fracture. Thank you.